Imagine a world turned upside down, where stepping onto land meant almost certain death, while diving into the ancient seas offered sanctuary. For millions of years, Earth experienced a bizarre reversal of fortune, where the oceans became the safest refuge from the horrors evolving on land. From air that could barely sustain life to monstrous predators with no natural enemies, the early continents were literal death traps, while the seas teemed with protected life. Discover the shocking paradox of this forgotten chapter in Earth's history, when our ancestors faced an impossible choice: brave the deadly shores or hide in the depths of ancient oceans. Watch until the end to learn how this bizarre era shaped everything that followed, including us. You know how we warn children about the dangers lurking in the deep blue sea. Sharks, jellyfish, the crushing dark depths. Well, what if I told you there was a time when parents would have warned their children about something far more terrifying? The land. For millions of years during Earth's history, stepping onto dry land was equivalent to walking into a death trap, while diving into the ocean was your best chance of survival. It's like nature's ultimate plot twist. The place we evolved to fear was once our only sanctuary from something much worse. Welcome to the Devonian Period, when the oceans were safer than land, and Earth's surface was the most dangerous place on the planet. So how exactly does the land, the very foundation of human civilization, become more dangerous than the mysterious depths we've spent our entire evolutionary history learning to fear? To understand this paradox, we need to travel back around 419 million years ago to the beginning of what geologists call the Devonian Period. Picture this: Earth's continents were nothing like what we know today. Most land masses were clustered together, forming the supercontinent scientists call Euramerica. If you could stand on the shore back then, you'd be looking at a landscape as alien as another planet. The Devonian is often called the Age of Fishes because marine life was experiencing an unprecedented explosion of diversity. But it might be better named the Era of Death by Land. NATO, think of Earth's atmosphere back then, like trying to breathe through a wet blanket. Oxygen levels were only about 15%, significantly lower than our comfortable 21% today. That's similar to trying to live permanently at 9,000 feet above sea level, where even trained athletes struggle to perform. But here's where it gets interesting. Water has this amazing superpower. It can hold dissolved oxygen that becomes accessible to gill-breathing creatures. So while land-dwelling organisms were gasping for every breath, fish and other marine life were quite literally swimming in oxygen. It's like being stuck in a room with broken air conditioner while your neighbor has a state-of-the-art cooling system. Except in this case, the broken room might kill you. And if the breathing difficulties weren't enough, let's talk about protection. On land, you're exposed. There's nowhere to hide except behind rocks or in the few primitive plants that have begun to take root. In the ocean, three-dimensional escape routes in every direction, with places to hide from predators above, below, and all around you. It's like comparing being stuck in an empty parking lot during a hailstorm versus waiting it out in a fully stocked shopping mall. One offers virtually no protection, the other gives you options. Let's put this into perspective. 419 million years ago, the Devonian begins. For context, that's so long ago that it predates the dinosaurs by about 200 million years. When the first T-Rex was hunting its prey, it was closer in time to you watching this video than to the events we're discussing. This was a time before the Atlantic Ocean existed as we know it, before mammals, before dinosaurs, before even the first forests had fully formed. The earliest land plants had only just begun their invasion of the continents, creating patchy green areas near water sources. These weren't the towering trees we know today, more like primitive mosses and early fern-like plants rarely growing taller than a few feet. By the Middle Devonian, around 390 million years ago, these plants became more established, but still nothing like the lush forests we might imagine. The landscape would have appeared barren and alien to our eyes, a strange mix of reddish soil, shallow ponds, and scattered green patches. And in this alien world, something extraordinary was happening. Some fish were beginning to develop adaptations that would allow them to make brief excursions onto land. These weren't planned migrations. They were desperate measures likely to escape predators or to move between bodies of water during drought. Imagine being so terrified of what's in the water that you'd risk suffocation and exposure on land. only to discover that land might be even worse. It's like jumping from the frying pan into the fire, except in this case, some creatures had no choice but to learn to survive in the fire. You might think that the ocean predators of the Devonian would be the stuff of nightmares, and you wouldn't be entirely wrong. Meet Dunkleosteus, a bus-sized armored fish with a bite force that could crush bone like you'd snap a potato chip. With a skull reinforced by bony plates and razor-sharp jaw projections instead of teeth, this beast could tear through anything that swam into its path. But here's the plot twist. Despite being absolutely terrifying, Dunkleosteus and its relatives actually created a form of balance in the marine ecosystem. They kept population numbers in check, prevented any single species from dominating, and ironically created a more stable environment. It's like having a strict but fair principal at school. Scary, yes, but ultimately creating an environment where rules are clear and consistent. Everyone knows where they stand. The armored fish were predictable. They hunted in specific ways, and prey evolved specific defenses. It was a deadly dance, but one with established rules. On land, chaos. One of the most astonishing discoveries about this period comes from experiments recreating Devonian atmospheric conditions. When scientists placed modern insects and amphibians in chambers with Devonian level oxygen, something shocking happened. Many couldn't sustain basic metabolic functions. Some became lethargic and uncoordinated. Others simply died. Yet when similar experiments were conducted with fish in water containing Devonian oxygen levels, they adapted with surprising ease. In one particularly dramatic case, researchers found that a modern lungfish, a descendant of the very creatures that would eventually conquer land, could survive for months in Devonian ocean conditions, but showed signs of severe stress after just hours in simulated Devonian air. It's like your body being perfectly adapted to drink salt water, but dying of thirst when given fresh water. Completely counterintuitive to how we understand survival today. The evidence is clear. If you were a Devonian creature with a choice between land and sea, you'd be far better off beneath the waves. Now, I've been painting the oceans as a relative sanctuary, but let's be clear, safer doesn't mean safe. The Devonian seas had their own nightmares, including what might be one of the most terrifying creatures ever to evolve. Sea scorpions, eurypterids as scientists call them, were arthropods that could grow to over 8 feet long. Imagine a scorpion the size of a kayak with grasping claws and a spiked tail, gliding silently through shallow coastal waters. One fossil specimen found in Germany shows a eurypterid that had just molted its shell when it was instantly buried by sediment. The incredible preservation revealed something shocking. These creatures had specialized sensory organs almost identical to modern scorpions, suggesting they hunted by sensing the electrical fields generated by their prey's nervous systems. You couldn't hide from them, you couldn't outswim them, and you certainly couldn't fight them. But here's the bizarre part. Despite being apex predators, eurypterids created a stable ecosystem. They had specific hunting territories, clear prey preferences, and natural limitations. The devil you know, as they say. And what was waiting on land? While the oceans had achieved a kind of dangerous harmony, the continents were experiencing what scientists now call atmospheric toxicity events. As those early plants began photosynthesizing, they altered local atmospheric compositions in unpredictable ways. Some areas became oxygen-rich, while others developed dangerous levels of carbon dioxide or even toxic compounds released by primitive plant defenses. In 2018, researchers analyzing fossilized air bubbles trapped in amber from this period found evidence of localized poison pockets, areas where decomposing plant matter created deadly concentrations of hydrogen sulfide and methane. One particularly grim discovery came from a fossil bed in what is now eastern Canada. Paleontologists uncovered the remains of what appears to be a mass die-off. Dozens of early tetrapods, fish beginning to adapt to land, found clustered together, apparently having died simultaneously without signs of predation or physical trauma. The leading theory? They wandered into a toxic air pocket and suffocated within minutes. It's like walking into an invisible gas chamber with no warning signs. At least in the ocean, you could see or sense danger approaching. On land, the very air could kill you without warning. But wait, if land was so deadly, why leave the water at all? The answer might surprise you. Think those sea scorpions were terrifying? Wait until you hear what was evolving in the shallow tidal pools. And just when you thought it couldn't get any stranger, scientists recently discovered evidence that some land areas were experiencing magnetic anomalies so strong they could disorient any animal with magnetoreception. Imagine trying to navigate when your internal compass goes haywire every few steps. Here's a question that keeps paleontologists up at night. If the Devonian extinction event hadn't happened, would vertebrates have ever fully conquered land? Or would Earth today be a planet dominated by ocean life, with only the hardiest creatures making brief excursions onto the alien world above the waves? So what changed? How did we go from a world where land was a death trap to one where terrestrial life flourishes? The answer lies in one of Earth's most dramatic transformations, the late Devonian extinction. Around 375 million years ago, a series of catastrophic events, likely involving massive volcanic eruptions, rapid climate change, and ocean anoxia, wiped out up to 75% of all species on Earth. When the dust settled, something remarkable had happened. The balance of power had shifted. Many of the ocean's most terrifying predators were gone. Oxygen levels on land were slowly rising as plant life established more stable ecosystems. For the first time in millions of years, the land wasn't necessarily more dangerous than the sea. And in this new world, the descendants of those brave fish that had risked everything to make brief excursions onto land found themselves with an unprecedented opportunity, a chance to evolve into something entirely new. Those creatures were our ancestors, the tetrapods that would eventually give rise to all amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals, including us. Think about that for a moment. The only reason you exist, the only reason you're watching this video right now, is because some desperate fish hundreds of millions of years ago took a chance on what was essentially a suicide mission, venturing onto deadly land. It's the ultimate cosmic irony. The very conditions that made land so hostile, the lack of established predators, the evolutionary vacuum, are what eventually allowed terrestrial life to flourish once those conditions improved. The land that once killed anything that dared to touch it became the foundation for the most complex and diverse forms of life on the planet. And perhaps there's a lesson there about how the most inhospitable circumstances can sometimes create the greatest opportunities for transformation. Millions of years later, the ocean still keeps its ancient secrets. But here in the Lost Bestiary, we dive into the depth that time tried to drown. If you thought this reversal of fortune was mind-blowing, just wait until our next episode, where we'll explore the bizarre era when the sky itself became a death trap deadlier than anything on land or sea. Hit subscribe and that notification bell so you don't miss it. And let me know in the comments, if you could visit any period in Earth's history for just 5 minutes, in a protective bubble, of course, which would you choose and why? This has been Lost Bestiary, where extinct doesn't mean forgotten.